Welcome to my humble little office. My name is R. Keith Andrews. I'm a spiritual guide and paranormal adept. The journey continues today on February 9th, 2024 at approximately 4:30 p.m. PST. Now, I've returned to this world for one primary purpose, and that is to remind people that working together, we can make this a better world for virtually everybody. I build myself as a spiritual guide because the tools I offer are the exact same tools I personally use in my day-to-day life. And the philosophies of life I talk about are the same philosophies I personally guide my virtually every movement by. With this in mind, I know these tools will work for you, as they continue to work for me, and they have worked for literally thousands of other people, depending on their own levels of effort, on their own personal effort. Now, with that in mind, before we get into anything, let's get my eyeballs on. We have Joe Stewart is in with the gold. And what do we got? Joe, you're into journal number 2. This is great. 32 pages to go out of 90. That's not called into journal 2. That's called wiping it out. Eternity, you are in with the silver. Hopefully things have been going well for you. I know you tend to get a little busy on occasion. And then we have Storm and Shadow in with the bronze. How's it going there, Storm? We have a fair chunk we've got to get sorted around because I got expansions I would like to make. And frankly, when it comes to tech, well, let's face it, it doesn't work right for me. Then we have Steve Knox is in with the honorable mention. Steve, hope things are going well. And Nathan, presumably you're running around work again, considering that's technically what you have a tendency of doing. So let us get this up. We require that. And we go, this is the link to Nathan's show. So we shrink that down and we pop that in. So do drop in, give him a listen. If you like what he has to say, do give him a thumbs up. And then subscribe to the channel and share the daylights out of the thing. It is literally this tendency to share our connections with each other that is going to have a direct impact on the way our world is going. Oh, there we go. He is not working. Nathan is out and about. Now remember, no texting and driving. Always don't. I saw the other day, a few months back, last summer I saw it. There was a chap I watched driving down the street, and you could not have charged him with texting. He took a full-sized paper map, spread all the way across his front window, and then he was periodically pulling down the top so he could see where he was driving. Now, he was not texting. I do think it was still impaired driving in my eyes, though. But I mean, to each their own. It's like I tell people, there's not nearly as much vehicular traffic on the sidewalks as there is on the street. But what I wanted to bring to your attention, and what I'm choosing to bring to your attention today, and it does fall under the paranormal because it is so often ignored, it's so often overlooked, and that is your memory and your imagination. Where is the real power in it? What is the real use of it? Now, people keep talking about the idea, as you get older, your memory fails. Well, your memory doesn't fail. Okay, your memory is perfectly fine. The problem is your recall fails. Okay, picture, if you will, take your computer with the hard drive, you take a look at the data tree. Wipe out the data tree. You haven't lost any of the information, but you may not know where it is. And why is our throat already seizing? This ought to be fun. This may end up being a short day. But if that's the case, I'll apologize ahead of time. Okay, so when you're looking at your memory, whether whether we're talking about your memory as in current life, what'd you have for breakfast, that sort of thing, or if we're talking about past life, it still works the same way. When you get a thought in your head, absolutely take a look at that and start working in that little piece. Build on it. It's kind of like when you're trying to build to improve your vision. Focus on what you can see and concentrate to make that more clear. It's the same thing with a memory. You've got this little wisp of a memory from a dream. Focus on the part you remember. Even if all that is I remember running. Start there and then work out. What you'll find happen is a thing. Yeah, we're definitely not going to make it that far. LA, how you doing? Glad you could join us. When you're working on the memory, you literally pick one small aspect. And for those of you that remember past lives, it gets to be, really intriguing. Especially if you're starting to remember a past life with somebody else. Then you can work off of each other. Now, I've done it with a couple of the people I know. Not very many, in all fairness. When we've sat down and we pulled a memory apart and gone, okay, what meshes? Now I will tell you, I don't have memories of this trip to Reno. Haven't been there, but I'll tell you, I'm going to be making the most of it. I did, however, where is it? Right there. This was kind of an important little factor for me. Not a real big issue. It'll be necessary down the road. But went and picked this up because my last one collapsed. No, I'm not taking my computer with me. I figure I got way too many other things to do. I'm going to be taking paper with me to write. But the important factor from my end is, I am I've got memories of other gatherings, and I'm sort of comparing these to that one. Like when I went to the Experiencer Speak conference way back in 2012 through 2014. Or was it 2012 through 2015? But had a lot of fun there. Had a lot of fun when we went to Skagit County in Washington. Okay, and I'm intending on having a lot of fun when we go down to Reno. Now, I don't know how many of you are going to make it. Okay, and I doubt very much I'll be able to connect with each one of you. But we are going to see what happens. One thing is for absolute certainty is that you make absolutely sure that whatever you're up to, make the most of the experience you've had, because those memories are, and this comes from somebody been there, done that. As you get older, these memories of these events are going to be the thing that hopefully you get to look back on. That you get to look back on fondly as you get older in life. Now, let's face it, you don't get options. You're going to get older. The question is, are you going to get old? Okay, now I don't know about you. I've got no interest in getting old. Quite frankly, I got no interest in my throat seizing, but it looks like it's going to do that anyway. So if my voice drops to the point you can't hear me, that's probably the problem today. It's a royal pain in the neck, in case you hadn't noticed. Wonder if that's showing up. Let me just see. Oh, okay. Just figured I'd turn my speaker on to see what was coming through there. One of the things I look at, you take a look at your memory. Now, in my case, my biggest shortfall right now, aside from remembering where I am, right? Like my biggest holdups, I still run into trouble now. Names I'm getting better at. North, south, east, and west, still just as lost as ever. Which means no matter which way I face, that's north. It's easier that way. So you take a look at what you're working on, whatever it is you're aiming to remember. Quite often, just writing down a quick little jot, just a quick little note of what you're working on can help a lot. Now, I will show you something here. Because we're in the middle of pulling things together, this little binder is now containing the topics for the newsletter and quite probably for the live stream at the same time. Okay, again, getting organized. One of the biggest things with the memory is the more organized you are, because the memory works on logic. So the more organized you are, the better your memory is likely to be. Same thing applies with past lives. Pull it together one step at a time. Matter of fact, I wonder if I've got it in here. Paranormal. No, that's economics. All the way back to the front here. What do we got? Oh, it's not there, it's over there. Anyway, you guys were asking about past lives, and I figured they've got to do with memory. Okay, it's just a different form of memory, if you will. But where is what I'm actually looking for? And of course, it won't be in the file, in the folder I thought it was in. Like, why would that be any different? Ah, there we are. Think? Nope. Looking for something here just because I was doing some work on one of my past lives. There we are. A very recent one. Okay. Now, people have asked me what kind of past lives do I remember? Well, I got a whole list of them, but the one I was working on a lot just the other day. Now, bear in mind, we are now in 2024. But in 1898, I was born in Chicago. Okay. Now, I was already mad, and there's a whole lot of reasons for that. Okay, I came into this world back in 1898. I came back into the world very mad because in 1828, my girlfriend carrying our daughter was murdered right in front of my eyes. And by 1833, I died of a broken heart. Now this is how past lives can have a direct impact on your current life. In 1898, i.e., 65 years later ish, I was born into a family in Chicago. Now, I was already mad, which means I was a problem child to start with. By 1902, I was only 4 years old at the time, and as happens with all children, okay, with many children, I should say, this one little girl, she took a toy of mine. Well, it wasn't bad enough that I got angry and wanted it back. I didn't just throw a temper tantrum. I took the little 3-year-old and I literally snapped her elbow just because she took my toy and broke it. Now, I'm telling you, this is way overboard, but it gets worse. Okay, like I said, my last lifetime, you wouldn't have wanted to know me. And now that was in 1902. Right, which would have put me at 4. At 5 years old, there was a 6-year-old that was being a bit of a bully. He did what 6-year-olds do, and he shoved me. What was my reaction? A little overstated. I grabbed the kid and threw him out in traffic. Now, in today's world, I wouldn't even consider it for obvious reasons. Even back then, I shouldn't have considered it. Okay. So at 7 years old, there were two teenagers that tried to rob me. Well, I snapped the first one's wrist to take the knife from him, and then stabbed the second one in the thigh and broke his elbow. You know, I stabbed him in the thigh, then broke his elbow and smashed his knee. Okay, the whole issue here was very simple. Like I said, because of the murder of my girlfriend the lifetime before, I was already mad. Okay, and this said, if you yourself happen to have an admitted temper, it may, it may come about in a very volatile fashion. This is not an excuse for it by any stretch. Okay, it is strictly the way things work. Okay, and like I said, it's not a case of he was such a bad apple. He was so tough. No, in all fairness, I was a coward that was madder than wet hen. Okay, by the time I was 16, I had a record as long as my arm of assaults with intent to do bodily harm, attempted murder. You name it, I had the list. And it was all a question of, I want this, therefore I'm getting it. And if you're standing in my way, well, that would be your problem, not mine. Okay, so at 16 years old, I got thrown into prison. Well, more to the point, I got thrown into jail. And I told the police, I said, you don't want to put me in there with those people. So they didn't listen to me. It was long drawn out process, and they're going, look, you broke the law. You're going to jail, and you're going in with those people until your court, period. Well, the next morning they come down, and 7 out of 7 were deceased. Of course, the police looked at me and was like, what the heck happened? I said, well, they were a-holes. You killed them because they were a-holes? So I didn't kill any one of them. And the guy goes, this guy's had his arm torn right off. Well, that I did, but I didn't kill him. Right? It's like, what do you mean you didn't kill him? I mean, when I dropped the hand, he was standing. When I dropped the arm on the floor, he was still breathing. Albeit he was screaming, but he was breathing. Right. But he died as a direct result of you tearing his arm off. Can't argue that, but I still didn't kill him. Net result, I ended up being picked up by the military instead of thrown into prison. Do not ask me how that one worked out, because I'm not entirely certain. But all of my lifetimes have not been nice. Okay, and every one of you, undoubtedly, although you may choose not to remember it, or you just may not have had the ability to remember it yet, but I have had some rather volatile ones. Okay, most of them I've been here as a teacher, not a teacher to teach somebody how to beat the heck out of somebody. I got very good at it, but that wasn't my purpose. Not most of them. Now, of course, here's the thing. Steve goes, all that has happened to you in past lives have something to do with you not being out in public? Oh, Lord, yeah. What I found, let me put it this way. I have been, well, in simplest terms, I've been stoned to death. Because I didn't agree with what people were doing, or I did things differently. I've been crucified. I've been burned at the stake. I've been buried alive. Okay. I've been beaten to death. You name it. I've had all sorts of wonderful experiences. Not, okay, 99% of the time it's been because of the fact that I literally didn't do things the way that the rest of society did. This way is no different, and this lifetime is no different in that respect. Except I'm not having people throwing sticks of dynamite through my window. I mean, from my standpoint, there is something to be said about a lot of the lifetimes I've had. When I worked for the government as a warlock, I was a witch looking for practicing witches. Okay, I was the one that went out and went. Because I was a practicing witch already, which I didn't tell them, but because I knew about witchcraft, I went to work for the government. I can find the witches for you. That's easy. So I go out and track down the witches. Now understand, most of the witches being burned were being burned because they were midwives, they were herbalists, they were veterinarians, they were doctors. Okay. But the church, quite frankly, didn't like it. The church wanted all the glory and all the power for themselves. I had no problem with it. So I saw an opportunity and I took it. I went to work looking for the witches. But here was where it twisted sideways. I'd go out and I'd investigate a so-called witch. If the witch was just keeping things quiet, and they were just quietly going about helping people and trying to help the animals and the plants, okay, if the people were doing that, then I would find them, nope, all the rumors about her being a witch or him being a witch were absolutely falsified. There's nothing wrong with what he's doing. And then I turn around and go, but you can bet, I'm laying odds with what I know about witchcraft and what have you, the person that blamed them, there's your witch. I'd like to go and test that individual, because I'm telling you, that's where your witchcraft is. Well, how can you be certain? Because a witch won't draw attention to themselves. They'll point it anywhere else. That's just the way witches are. They're devious individuals. So, needless to say, I would find the people that were accusing the witches, when it was a good witch. I'd find the one that accused them, try them for witchcraft, and needless to say, they were guilty. I mean, we knew that before I brought them to trial. Yes, I know that is absolutely going against modern belief. You don't go, oh, that person's guilty, let's hang them up and crucify them and shoot them or whatever. But in my eyes, I had a good reason for it. You see, the moment somebody died, their property went up for grabs again. And nobody wanted the property of a convicted witch. So I turn around, I buy the property for a song. Then I go and find the other witches that were decent people, move them on my property where nobody would ever accuse them of witchcraft again. Okay, and my empire grew. Now understand something. If a witch went black and I knew about it, you can bet they were on the barbecue. Okay, but for me, it worked out well. I knew what I was doing, I knew what they were doing, and many of my lifetimes went the same way. I've always found a way, and this is something that just threw me for a loop. This is why I say, if you can remember your past lives, look at the past lives and what you remember. Those skills are still there. Those skills, those abilities that you had are still prevalent in your body today. They're carried with your soul. If you think about it, when you have a vehicle, and you're driving, you do all sorts of things. When your vehicle breaks down, you don't forget what you did in the vehicle. You go out, buy a new vehicle, you've still got all the memories and all the skills. Now, Joe goes, I'm just looking at what Joe did. Joe goes, this morning I woke up and wrote down dream last night. Kept going by writing down non-paranormal stuff that happened to me in the cemetery. I figured writing them down would help in some way. He goes, I wrote so much this morning with a lot of coffee and started to get writer's cramp. Oops. Yep, you were writing a little much. However, at least you were writing a little much in one sitting. I've done that myself. Okay. But yeah, in all fairness, Joe, writing down the mundane things is absolutely something that will help with remembering the paranormal ones. Because it's literally all tied together. you notice once you got writing, it became a whole lot easier. Of course, you're trying to, the only disadvantage I find is you're writing away with your right hand, and most people that are writing with their right hand have to stop to grab that coffee. I'm lucky. I can be writing with my right hand, grab the coffee with my left hand, and take a drink of it that way. Works out well. Gets to be a problem when I've got 2 cups of coffee, which happens every now and again. Whoa, how you doing? Glad you could join us. And what are we here? I am just curious about something. Now, like I said, when it comes, well, that's quick. When it comes to your to your memories, the more you focus on them, and I mean focus on the good ones, do yourself a favor. Do not work too hard to remember all the bad things that have happened. Okay. I mean, I know with some of my past lives, I know I had some pretty volatile ones. But one of the best ones was the fisherman. You know, the fisherman in Ireland was one of my very enjoyable ones. Of course, I was also an artist in Italy. Yeah, I was an artist in Italy, and talk about being a pacifist. You know, I wasn't in conflict there. I just did my own thing. I looked at the world in a different fashion. In this world, take a look at your memories from your childhood. Some of you have childhoods that you really don't like. Okay, that you prefer not to remember. And for those of you that have memories from your childhood that are not conducive to feeling better, do your best to focus past them. You know, the reality of it is that when we start looking at past lives, now my one, the one, like that one okay, let's get back into English, shall we? My lifetime in the early 1900s, I was violent. Even after getting out of the military, even after taking a break from the military, I remember dating a young woman. Now, you remember the issue? I remember what I told you. There's a skull sitting way back here. Where is it? Can't see where my hand is. Up there, I think. That skull sitting back there. You know, that skull was the home. We had to go show up. I thought it was a guy to start with. As it turned out, then that belonged to Samantha, a young lady I dated when I was in my early 20s. And like I said, I was a violent individual. But somebody come around the corner and tried doing a drive-by shooting on me. Well, I was standing there on the corner with my girlfriend, with Samantha. And to give you an idea just how loving I was at the time, guy come around the corner, and what did I do? I grabbed my girlfriend and held her between me and the gun. Worked out beautifully. I lived. Needless to say, she was a little testy. Okay, but it wasn't part of the equation for me. It was about what I wanted, not what anybody else did. This lifetime, it really is primarily about you guys, about the fact that society has taken one heck of a nosedive and really does require some help. Okay, I will not blame the way the world is on the people that are in it alone. You guys that are living in it right now, you got to remember, you were taught by your parents, by your teachers, who were taught by theirs, and so on and so forth, or back on and back forth. You know, the fact of the matter is, this is the way people have been taught. So, like I said, 1828, I was violent. I got pulled into the military and was directly involved in developing mustard gas. To me, this was great. I could kill a lot more people, and I was getting paid for it. Okay, but at that, there was a time when I literally got introduced. I was at a crash. Okay, I ended up being on site during the UFO crash. Okay, and the one survivor had a child, turned the child over to me. I turned around and she asked me to protect it. Now, this is one of the most violent people you'll ever meet. Okay, at that time, you just didn't want to cross me. Because quite frankly, in my last lifetime, it wasn't a question of, if you attack me, I'll kill you. It was a question of, if I want something of yours, I'll take it. But this child was handed to me, and yes, to be clear, this was a reptilian child. Okay, and this reptilian handed this thing to me, and went, "Please, Bren." How I understood what she said, I don't know. Okay, all I know is that when she handed me her child, she said, "Make sure, please make sure he's saying that she's safe." So I took this tiny little lizard. And to me, it was just a lizard. There was nothing more to it. But I took this tiny little lizard, and there were a bunch of local North American Indians nearby. They were watching from the woods edge. Before the military showed up, before the main force of the military and the authorities showed up, I took this child and handed it off to the natives. Okay, and turned around and I said, "Look, this is what I was asked. I am not the one to take care of this." So they took it, disappeared into the woodwork, never saw them again until, I died in 1956 in Chicago Memorial. Okay, died of old age in all fairness. Well, in all fairness, I don't know if it was old age. 1956, I'd have only been 58 years old. And so I died young. But I turned around, was born in 1963, came back with one goal in mind. And that literally was to find this little munchkin and make sure she was okay. Okay. I was 5 years old when she surfaced. And that's where I got rescued. It was kind of like I saved her, she saved me. It was kind of a nice little trade-off. I found out at that point she was Frizazian. Okay. And again, now you'll notice this is the 1800s all the way up into the 2000s. Okay. Well, actually into the 1900s. But we're looking at 3 lifetimes all tied directly together by a series of events. And this is why I say your memory, whatever's going on, may be far more valuable than you might think. And I have taken your guys' recommendation. And I've started, at least in point form to begin with, documenting some of my past lives. Now, there are some that will be just deliberately left out. But when you look at your memories, if memories of events can take place, then it stands to reason that your memories of skills are also held in place. So, when you start looking at your memories, and by the way, Joe's going, I have learned pretty quick when writing real or just a dream, write down every person, place, or thing. And I'm very surprised with the results so far. Yeah. And you'll find the more you write them down, if you go back and reread what you wrote, you'll remember other details. This is a neat thing about memory. You'll read something, it'll twig that memory. Many of you have found different movies that do that exact same thing. They trigger a memory. And all of a sudden you've got either the memory itself or flashbacks or any number of side effects. It boils down to write down your thoughts. Now, some of you will call it channeling. I'm writing down and I'm thinking about it, and this is what's coming out. These are more often than not forgotten memories, sometimes from a past life. Sometimes they are a direct link to either your higher self or another entity. I'm not the one to tell you which is which. I am the one to tell you that while you're writing them down, don't filter. The only thing you concentrate on, aside from writing, and I recommend this from personal experience. Do your best to write slowly so you can read your handwriting. I have a tendency of writing so fast, it almost looks like a straight line. I'm like, what was that supposed to be? So I do caution you, when you're writing down your thoughts, your memories, slow the writing down. Because as you remember it, as you remember different things, you may find forgotten skills come back to light. And this can be really handy. Mind you, I'm a firm believer that remembering how to shoe a horse is not going to do me a lot of good in today's world. There just aren't that many horses, and I'm certainly not going looking to get a job as a farrier. But maybe, just maybe, as I pick my way through the past memories, the memories that come from times when technology was way ahead of us, maybe those memories will come back and give me something to work with. I don't know at this point. Okay. So, when we're looking at it, see, that's terrible. When I first opened this up, when I first opened the videos up, we were sitting at 597. We are now down to 595, which is unfortunate, but we'll eventually break 6, and then we'll carry on from there. But the thing with memory is this: what you've got right now, and this is why I recommend journaling. Okay, get your thoughts on paper. Now, I was lucky. As a matter of fact, I'll show you what I mean. No, I showed it to you the other day. I stumbled across a manuscript. My grandmother had written it out. Never told anybody about it. Okay, or more to the point, she only told one person. Somehow, I ended up with apparently the only copy available. Okay, but these are memories of people. And of course, in my life, in my world, this neat little book here, this, I was told, the storyline seems to revolve around literally my autobiography. But that means we're going back lifetimes, species, and literally billions of years. Okay, but write your thoughts down. Really work on your memory. And yes, repeatedly going over the same thing. LA is going, I remembered how to do art and figures somehow. Had very little experience as a youngster. Oh, there you go. Yeah, dramatic makeup. I gotta ask, LA. This is gonna sound really like a weird thing. And if you choose not to answer it, absolutely, obviously, that is your right. But, I'd love to know if you remember growing up in feudal Japan. It's just something just hit me when you made that comment. Okay, just a thought process. Best I can tell you is I think the island would have been called Okinawa. I think. Best I can tell you for certain is it would have been on the northern tip of the archipelago. What I don't know is in today's world what that island actually is. Oh yeah, Okinawa isn't an island anyway, it's a city. Yeah, it's just all of a sudden it's like I'm getting this image that this is where you were sitting. Now, where it came to Japan, I don't know if we ever met in Japan. Okay. I was a different type of individual there. But no, I wasn't that volatile. Yeah, if I'd have studied it, like I picked up Japanese, I actually taught myself and some very simple keywords. Because I got bored at social, so I went and started picking and poking around and learning. However, I do know that I did learn the use of the katana. I actually learned before I got to Japan. We didn't call it a katana at that point, but the reality was, from my standpoint, I don't know if we were in the same time. I haven't pieced mine together yet. It's just when you made this comment about the dramatic makeup and that sort of thing, all of a sudden it's like I get this flash, and it's like, there you are. And yes, people, I do see that for some people. Very few will I bother saying a word to. But LA and I have known each other for a little bit of time. LA goes, I was never allowed to join athletic, but I joined a martial arts class and ended up teaching. I was actually absolutely forbidden to take martial arts. Right. I was flat out told you're not permitted to. Now I don't know who told me that. I never did. I never did take it up. I never did go into teaching it. Okay. In all fairness, I'm a pacifist. Okay. Yeah, right. Oh, nice. Yeah, LA's just letting us know. I mentioned my picture is in the Martial Arts Hall of Fame in Cleveland. It's always nice to be known for something positive. I mean, Bonnie and Clyde had their pictures put up in a bank somewhere, and I forget where. Right? Not quite so nice a memory. But I've got memories of a lot of issues that took place over the years, over the centuries, where people were treating each other absolutely pathetic. In most of my lifetimes, I was trying to be decent. Okay, I know my one lifetime as a senator, I was always standing up for the people that were in trouble, but I was doing it from a legal standpoint. But it was rather fascinating when I was talking to a preacher the other day. We were discussing timelines and what have you, and what he told me, he did the research on the internet. Turns out, I remembered very clearly the gladiatorial revolt. What I didn't remember was who started it. The massive gladiatorial revolt. I knew I didn't start it. I just didn't try and stop it. What I did was I went in as a gladiator and went, okay, guys, I know you're going to have a revolt. I know this. I know innocent people are going to die. But I'm asking you, if you keep your head your wits about you, if there's pedestrians trying to get away, let them run. Even if a Roman soldier puts down his weapon and runs, leave him run away. He's not the one, those are the people that you let live, if you can. I said, I'm not going to bother telling you don't do it, because I know it's going to happen. But I will tell you, your cause will be far better served if you target the politicians, which I agree with you. Like I told them, the politicians are crooked. Now, that was back in Rome, and they were. Now, bear in mind, the lifetime before I was a politician, so I knew they were crooked. Okay, so I says that's not a problem in my eyes. Do what you will, but do your best to leave the innocent alone. Well, the revolt went on. I popped in here that she was the first woman to win the Kata challenge. I believe that's how you pronounce that. Yeah. Yeah, the Kata challenge. I always thought it was spelled with two T's, but apparently not. But then I've never studied martial arts. But when you're looking at your memory, now I'm looking at my memory where it comes to health in order to put my body back on track. And I do strongly recommend that, if you live through the Black Death, I strongly recommend you don't bring that memory back up to the surface. I remember the reek. I made a lot of money that lifetime. But rest assured, it's not all about the money. But memory is one of these things that you can build it and make it strong. If you're constantly learning something new, you will avoid your brain sliding into dementia or into senility, this sort of thing. I don't know about you, but I already have enough trouble remembering people's names. Never mind where I put my coffee cup. I'll tell you, that's a bigger travesty than forgetting somebody's name. Well, no, that's not true. But we have the other side of memory. You've got memory, and you've got false memory, and you've got absolutely flat out imagination. All of them draw on the same thing: your ability to mentally conceptualize that which your heart is telling you, this is what I'd like to experience. Okay, now I'm sitting in a situation where my memory and my fears can both get pretty strong. So here I am, looking forward to a trip in May, and fully expecting it to go sideways, which part of me is saying, no, it's not going to go sideways. The other part of me is saying, yeah, it very likely is. But because I see the world as positive, negative, and neutral all at the same time, okay, I can still push forward with it. This won't matter to some of you. I did look into it today. No, yesterday. Looked into it and found out that I've actually found out I can get medical insurance to come south of the border for a total of 35 days this year. Okay. Now I've already chalked off 1 week, but I'm looking at chalking off another 2. That leaves me 1 more week if I can make it happen. And yeah, it's a weird setup. Here I was just at the beginning of this year. Okay, with virtually no income. Well, with no income and virtually no money. And here I am planning essentially just over a month in the, traveling in the States. I'm reclusive. Okay, this is kind of a weird setup when you think of it. But I'm going to see what happens, see what I can arrange. Because like I said, I have to come out of the shadow. My memory serves quite well where it comes to walking ancient streets and talking to people about literally them. It was necessary, even way back. Okay. It was absolutely necessary that people learn to get along. Now, conversely, I remember wearing sandals centuries back, well, in this case, millennia back, and literally organizing war parties. Yes, everybody has to get along. And as long as they're agreeing with me, that's great. If they're not agreeing with me, well, then let's go kill them so that everybody that's living agrees with me. Bear in mind, I was not Attila the Hun. I was not Genghis Khan or Alexander the Great. I did run with Attila the Hun. Okay, and I'll use the term run with him a little loosely. Okay, but even with him, I didn't do what I was told. This is why I kind of found it kind of funny the one day. I've been fighting to try and figure out how to fit into this world. And this one person I was talking to goes, Keith, you haven't fit in a single lifetime. What makes this one so important? Well, I figured I'd do things a little differently this year, this lifetime. And this is why, as I build the empire, I am planning on taking that wealth and turning it back to the population, back to the contributors, to the supporters, to the customers and clients. Oh heaven, I was orchestrating the wrong crowds. This lifetime, I know a few people that were criminals. Okay, but I've never gotten so much as a speeding ticket this lifetime. But a lot of the times, like I remember running a dragon ship, and I was one of the best known pirates in the area. Now, no, I was not. I was not Captain Hook or any of the big names from the old pirates. Okay, but I was in the area. I was quite well known because I pulled into town. When I pulled into dock, I didn't hunt on the open sea. I went in and raided the shoreline. And the thing there was I'd come in and I'd literally tell people, raise the flag, and it's like, okay, everything in the city is mine. And we would start on the dock we were at. If it wasn't bolted down, if it wasn't bolted down or held onto by somebody, and I'm talking material stuff, not people. Okay, if it wasn't bolted down, I would grab hold of it and we would load it onto the ship. Needless to say, I had a whole lot. Yeah. And he goes, I don't know. Seems to me hanging around with them was better than being hunted by them. Well, true. So I remember now, everybody said I was such a creep. Thing is, I told my pirates I would tell very simply, no raping, no raping ever. Right? You leave the women alone. And I remember walking into a room one day, like I'm going down the streets because it was just like, okay, take that back to the ship. And I was brutal. Okay. But I remember walking into a room and I heard screams going on. And one of my pirates was trying to rape somebody. Well, he ended up dead. I mean, granted, she ended up a little coated in blood, but it wasn't hers. Right. But I cut him in half and threw him out the door. When I stepped out with the body, it's like I looked at the other pirates running around and go, hands off the women. Needless to say, my pirates tended to pay attention for the most part. Okay. But there was one guy, everybody said I was such a creep. And understandably, I told one of my mates, one of my pirates, I literally told him, okay, you're new here. Go swab that section of the deck. Why should I have to swab it? So I cut him in half, turned to two guys beside me and said, okay, you go swab the deck, you strip the body and toss it overboard. This is why people would listen. I mean, I prefer if people listen on a much more positive note, but there was one guy in the one coastal city. He met me at the door. He saw what was going on. He meets me at the door to his house. And he stopped and I looked at him and he goes, you can't go in here. Everything in this house is mine. I went, oh, okay. And I walked off. Well, here's the thing. You think I was a creep. This guy figured it out. He never told a soul in the city how he managed to avoid getting cleaned out. But I'll tell you, he was wealthy as all get out in a couple of years. Of course, I'd clear everybody else and leave him alone. But the third year I came by, he goes, hey, everything in the city, in this room, in this building is mine. But would you like to come in for supper? And I'd go in and he'd give me dinner and he'd give me drink. Right. We just left him alone. Yeah. LA's going, Machiavelli, best rule with kindness. But if that fails, brutality will do. Yeah, I mean, I was quite blunt about it. Do it my way, we're good. In this lifetime, I'll tell you, the way I'm working on works. I prefer, I do encourage you to do it the way I'm doing it, but I'm not going to kill anybody if you don't. Okay. And in all fairness, the reality in my eyes is this. If society doesn't start changing their path, then it's going to happen this our way anyway. But again, these are coming out of it, like I said. Are these memories of any use? Absolutely. I did discover something very important. Okay. If you desire something done, be clear with everybody what those boundaries are. Okay. Don't ask for any quarter on. Don't give any quarter. This is the boundary. Okay. And with my pirates, it was real simple. Do exactly what I tell you. Follow these simple guidelines. Okay. And you'll live through the day. If you don't, you'll figure out how to swim. Or not. Because the odds are with an anchor tied to your ankle, you're probably not going to swim that well. But I am in the middle of putting these on paper. And I forget who asked specifically, but somebody asked me to put little blurbs about my past lives in the newsletter. That's already being worked in. Okay, but the more you can draw on your memory and on what you recall, both from your earlier life this time and your past lives, it all works towards the same thing. Now, keep in mind, your imagination is the next best thing to a memory. The one drawback with the imagination is if you don't know if it's real, call it your imagination, leave it at that. Okay. But sometimes you'll imagine something that eventually you find out was absolutely real. Now, I know that I thought I was imagining running a plantation in southern Louisiana in the mid 1760s. Okay. As it turned out, and no, I'm not going to tell you who. I will tell you, as it turned out, there was a plantation owner at that point that had the same setup that I remembered. Okay. But when I started when I started doing research on my past lives, much like you do with Ancestry, okay, you start doing research, and all of a sudden you've got a real neat situation. Okay, all of a sudden what you thought was a memory or was your imagination comes out to prove it's got some sort of physical proof. And again, if you chalk it up to imagination, this is where it gets to be fun. Many of you will look at this. It's classified as science fantasy. Okay, because it's got a lot of the mythological creatures. In this case, it's also science fiction, because Birth of the Wolf Pack takes place post-apocalypse. Okay, but when you start looking at the main character, you're going to find that many of his events are literally drawn from my own memories. And the more you can remember, if you can remember how you looked at the world, maybe you can see the world in a better light now. Or maybe you can see a way around the situation you're facing. I will tell you, you don't have to be able to do everything. If you are not capable of doing something, this is when you've got to remember there are other people out there that maybe not only willing, but able to help. Okay. And again, use your imagination. Take a look at the way your world is. Are you content with the way your world is sitting right now? Don't mind me. I just noticed something I'm a little curious about. Oh, that's what it is. I just noticed these dots here. Okay. But they were brought about by tape. It's that they all of a sudden stood out as really odd. But if you're taking a look at the way your world is, okay, remember the type of life you had. Now, I remember, like I said, I remember in the 1760s owning 3 plantations. I remember way back. When would it be? Well, when I ran the Dragon Fleet, we had, I think we had nearly a dozen ships. I remember taking one ship. I didn't like the people on it, so I had it sunk. And by the way, that was my ship. Never mind, because I didn't see the point in sinking the other people's ships. Oh, there you go, LA. Yeah, LA goes, I just added one big project. Replacing an outside door to my house. Patio door hit it. Ouch. Your patio door hit your outside door. This is not good. But yeah, that's a big job. Something like that, I just phone my landlord up and go, I need to replace this thing. Fortunately for me, there's no way my front door can hit my patio door. Or vice versa. Would be a little tricky. Considering my patio door is way back from the building. And the front door to the apartment or to the building happens to be about 50 yards away. Now, of course, I gotta ask Ellie, are you putting another patio door in, or are you just gonna put a wall in? Just because I'm nosy. Yeah, I know my dad years ago, and he did corroborate this. I had a memory of him doing something that was volatile as all get out. But he picked an airman up. My dad was military. And he got mad. He picked an airman up and took him outside the front door. Outside the front door to the cafeteria. Which probably wouldn't have been bad if there had been a front door to start with. Oh, there you go. Yeah, I get a kick. I always get a kick out of that phrase. But no, my dad picked an airman up and took him out through the front door. The neat part was it didn't have a door to start with. But when Dad took him out through the front wall, it was cheaper to put a door in there than it was to rebuild the wall. Oh, nice. Why does it not surprise me that you guys can actually pull a construction job together easily? That's just so hard for me to figure out. But again, I remember years ago, and I got a kick out of it. Centuries back, I was a carpenter, right? But the thing with the carpenters back then is they didn't use these little metal hammers. They used a great big wooden maul. Okay, this is why they were built like freight trains. Today's carpenters, yes, they're strong, absolutely. But they, I swear the carpenters back then are why the Scottish went to, what is it called? I forget what it's called. I keep wanting to call it kimber tossing, but that's wrong. I swear the original carpenters were why the Scottish took to throwing logs around. In today's world, don't give me a hammer and a nail and hope I'm going to get a straight line out of it. This is just a bad idea. Because if I ever drive a nail straight, it was an accident. Well, I can't call it an accident because the idea was right. But, the intention was there. My accuracy this lifetime, not good. Okay. I mean, I did, on the other hand, at that point, I was fabulous with it. Where are we here? This weekend, in all likelihood, not. I've recently found out I cannot go to the restaurant I was living at. The tension there has just collapsed. Or more to the point, the tension's gone off the charts. It's very uncomfortable at this point for me. But no, the closest thing to plans for the weekend, I'll be gaming on Sunday. And I may go down. I may end up going down to the post office to get a passport application, to get my youngest son's passport done before he hits 19, because I think it's cheaper to do it that way, or easier. I don't know which. Yeah, I did. Well, I mean, it cost me a small fortune, but the new owners have made it. Like, I walked in there 2 days ago, maybe yesterday, and the energy in it was so palpably wrong, right? That I just couldn't tolerate it. They're not, the waitresses are so stressed out, they can't even do their job properly anymore. Which is just a terrible thing. And unfortunately, and I am tossing around the idea of going, here's a letter to the new owners, right? And here's what I've seen, and I was here every day, and I think and what do you think, guys? And this is a deadly serious question. I'm considering writing a letter to the owners and going, okay, I used to come in here daily, all the time. I saw, the management, the staff was always friendly, always right there, always treated me well. Now you bought the place, and the hours are being absolutely decimated as far as staff goes. You're never there, period. So you don't even know what the customers are. And even from what I gather, the general manager, who I've never seen, much as she's a nice kid, doesn't have a clue what she's doing. Okay, now that's on you guys. Yeah, Elliott's going, I would do it. I have done that. Sometimes it wasn't well. Sometimes it went well. Sometimes not so good. Well, I appreciate that, Ellie. Because from my standpoint, and I see it all the time with companies. I've talked about the idea of communication. Right. Now, bear in mind, I spent from 1982 to 1996 in the hospitality industry. And I watched a staggering number of businesses get bought because they were profitable. And then they got tanked because the new owners changed everything, didn't communicate with their new staff, and made everything a disaster. Okay. I mean, the ultimate side of it is that when you're looking at business, take a look at what you're looking at. If I had the money and the inclination, I'd probably buy a restaurant. Mind you, there is not a snowball's prayer I would ever cook in it. If you're buying a restaurant, you want the people coming back. You do not want the people eating what I cook. This is just a bad idea. When I worked for the one country club I worked for, at the time it was the second best one in the country. I taught them how to set up their fine dining. Do I look like somebody that really cares about fine dining? I know what people like. I just frankly don't care. For me anyway. Yeah. LA goes, I do it. They can't buy feedback like that, and they need it. If they accept it, great. Yeah, and this was just something I'm sitting here going, I've run businesses in the past, and it's funny. I was even with gaming. I asked my game master one day. I said, "What is it?" Every time I start a new character, I start building an empire. What the heck is this? He looks at me and goes, "Drive." Even my current character right now, the newest, the one I'm running, is only 22 inches tall. He's driving an international. Right. As a matter of fact, he just got finished a run with a C train. Well, really, it was a B train with a pup. Now myself, I wouldn't set foot in the cab of a semi, but there's no way I'd try driving it. Unless I was out in the middle of an open field, that'd be something else. But I did sit in the cockpit of a Hawker Siddeley Harrier, okay, aka a Canadian military jet, okay, with vertical takeoff and landing, aka VTOL. I did get the pleasure of sitting in the cockpit of one of those. The reality of it is, this world is right now in an absolute disaster. It is going down a road that is absolutely a shambles. Now, I was talking to somebody just recently that their mind is a complete it's when you compare it to normal, it's completely tied sideways. But it is so reminiscent of today's society. Okay, where everybody's arguing, everybody's fighting for something. Most of them don't know what they're fighting for. Okay, and they're getting virtually nothing accomplished, at least nothing of benefit. Now I am expanding my newsletter. I am explaining positive perspectives and positive perceptions. And what are we looking at here? I'm just curious. Well, that was short-lived. And again, guys, if you do like the stream, do me a favor, give us a thumbs up. Do subscribe to the channel and share the daylights out of the thing. That would be really appreciated. We only, quite frankly, require 5 more subscriptions to hit the 600. And then I got to climb from there. 600 is only the beginning. Most people go, I'd love to get a couple of thousand. Sorry, guys, I'm looking for 1 billion or more. Because I am so fed up with the amount of people sitting in front of and listening to people go, the world's going to end, we're all going to die, we're going to go through all this shortage. Okay, it's either that or they're watching that, or they're watching people playing video games and getting nothing accomplished. This isn't working well for society. Never mind for your life. Take a look at the other side of it. What is the world going to look like if we leave it going down the road it's on right now? I remember I got pulled into I got asked to come in and look at a business one day it was a cleaning business, and she was losing staff and customers, and she asked me to come take a look at her business. So I walked in, I looked around the place, and went, okay, who sits at that desk? And it went back and forth, but it was clear this desk belonged to one person, and only one person ever used it. So I looked at her, I says, fire them. I can't do that. She's been with me since the start. So don't fire them. You'll be bankrupt, and you'll be bankrupt. You'll be closed inside of 6 months. Well, for whatever reason, she fired them. 6 weeks later, she phones me up and goes, I got another problem. I'd like you to come in and tell me, and give me an idea how to cope with. I mean, yeah, no problem. Walked in the door, and she's got a maze this tall and a stack of new clients. And I said, what's the problem? She goes, I've got so many coming in, I can't keep up with them. What do I do? I said, hire back the one you just fired. For some reason, she didn't hire the person back, but she did retire 7 years later. Oh, here we are. Oh, woo. Definitely our sympathies, and we will do what we can as far as the toothache goes. Absolutely, we will wish you all the best on that one. We'll get some rest. The reality of it is we have a world here that we can turn around, but you got to think back to the older days, if you will, and take a look at how society coped. Christine, how we doing? Glad you could join us. But no, if we look back, if you look back to the Great Depression of the early 1900s. Ow. Well, that's going to be a pain. Well, that was annoying. Hiccups. No, not having a heart attack, Christine. It's just I got one valve in here that tries to go in both directions when I hiccup, and it's only designed to go one. So, needless to say, it hurts. But no, my heart's perfectly fine. But thanks for the concern. Now, if I was having a heart attack, I'd probably be going, oh, great, another heart attack. Just what we need. Heart attacks are painful, hiccups are worse. At least for me. But no, if you know people that grew up, now we're running out of them. The people that lived through the Great Depression. There's not many of them left. Okay. But you may know people who spent their childhood in the Great Depression. Talk to them about what they went through. Find out what they did to survive. Okay. Or if you know people that are suffering from poverty. Okay. This is the weird thing that most people forget. Okay, you barely got enough to live on. How do you survive? What are you doing? Okay, it's this kind of communication that is going to bring back the memories of what society went through, and thereby reveal the tricks to surviving it and potentially turning it around. This is the thing we have to remember, is that all things can be turned around, except history. Whatever's already happened, you're stuck with, but you can learn from it. Yeah. Ellie goes, my mom and dad did. They survived, obviously, but didn't deal with it very well going forward. Yeah, it leaves, like, I know people that have gone through major problems themselves, okay, in their own history, in their own life. And some people recover from it, others don't. Like any of you out there suffer from a major food shortage because you just ran out of money? Maybe you didn't end up on the street. Maybe you were just right down to the bare wire. Okay. Now I've seen both ways happen. You get down to that little food or that little money. And some people go way overboard and become hoarders, hanging on to everything they can get their hands on. Others just kind of go, well, got through it. That was me. Well, that was really annoying. I spent a month eating only jam sandwiches because I couldn't get help from the government. And that was all I happened to have in the freezer. It was all I could afford. Right. Spent a month that way. Never again. And it wasn't a question of never again will I go through that. I certainly don't desire to. I certainly don't want to go through it again. But I looked at it when I got out of it, it was like, hey, I can eat what I please now because I've got food, I've got money, I've got food again. I'm telling you, the government itself flat out told me they wouldn't help me. Well, actually, they said, we can't help you. I told them that they just wouldn't. I'm still of the same opinion. In my world, it's very simple. I've got a goal in mind. That is to take all that I'm working with and the empire I'm looking at building. And yes, I'm inviting you along for the ride because anybody that is helping, is contributing, is purchasing, is going to get tied into the same system because I've already worked it out that 80% of my net profit will be going back out. Okay. I don't require $1 billion a month, but you can bet your bottom dollar I'm going to work to make it. Okay. For me, it's simple. I don't have to have all this material stuff for me because, well, check back with Egypt. Their pharaohs figured we'll take it all with us. Okay. We'll take the whole 9 yards with us. They buried it with them, including the servants. And amazingly, the people and the pets all died. The pharaoh was dead. And all the stuff is still left there. Okay. So I'm not building this empire for me to take with me. Okay. I'm not even building it so that my kids can take it over. Okay. I'm building it because it gives me something to do for the next 30, 40 years. Okay. But when I go, I've got no illusions. Okay, I know somebody will pick it up and completely decimate the poor thing, in all likelihood. Now, mind you, it was done once, centuries ago. Well, actually, in all fairness, millennia ago. Somebody came up with an idea, and not only did it take hold, but it flourished and covered the entire world with a belief structure. Now, ideally, I will do that same thing with this empire. I'll build it in such a way that people see what it can do, and I'll get the right people to guide it, and the right people will come along, and this empire will grow to global and literally years long, decades long, centuries long business. Hudson Bay Company up here in Canada is 325 years old. Actually, I think it's a little older now. Probably closer to 340 if my math is right. But all empires have to start somewhere. And the reality is you don't have to kill people to get them ahead. You don't have to walk on people to get ahead in life. You don't have to stab people in the back to make a buck. Okay, and no, it doesn't help you. It doesn't make you feel better. Okay, what I'm looking at is simple. I remember running a plan when I was running the plantation. I was in a good position to start with, and I bought the only 2 slaves I ever paid for. Brought them both over. Ended up when they hit free and when they were finally free, I married the one of them. Okay, but I had slaves working for me that wouldn't leave. I go, okay, yeah, you've been you've been under my roof for the last 20 years. You're free to go, and you don't want to leave. Okay, no, you don't have to. So I mean, I looked at that, and I remember what it felt like to live in such a world where you walk in and people knew you because you had become what they considered successful. I considered it successful because the people I had in my employ were paid properly, were treated decently, were protected from the atrocities that many of the community were doing. Like as a plantation owner, I remember coming home one day shortly after I hired a guy and was beating the daylights out of him. So I went, nope, not going to happen. I stopped the beating, cut the slave down, sent him off to get taken care of, and then strung the employee up and beat the heck out of him myself. I'm a firm believer, and my memories all the way back date the same way. Now, there were times when I was an absolute warmonger. Okay, as I was telling somebody today, I remember a lifetime where I was a very strong proponent of the Flat Earth Society. You know, way back when being a flat earther was actually common, but I was very much an avid supporter of it. You send our children out onto the ocean, out past the horizon. They're going to drop off. You're just murdering our kids for your own benefit or enjoyment. I don't know which. But I was an absolute. I'd stand up on the crates down at the docks, and I would yell at people, and I'd pound my fist into the ground, into my hand, and I continually yell at them that this whole idea of going out of beyond the horizon was just a death sentence. And I believe, and I'm not honestly certain if I'm right, but I believe it was Copernicus that turned around and got talking to him one day, and he goes, "Look, here's all the evidence. This is why we're not going to die." Okay, I might be wrong on the guy's name. I really don't recall. But somebody came along and showed me the math behind it, showed me the proof that you go up past the horizon, you weren't going to die. And they proved it to me, and I immediately switched sides and went, "Nope, okay, it's safe to go. Let's make it happen." Because last week you were saying it was the end of the world if you go out there. Yep, I was. But the reality is, I didn't know any better. Now I've got the proof. So I mean, from that standpoint, I'm quite willing to acknowledge when I've misremembered something. And this is why I say I don't know for certain if it was Copernicus. Okay, I only know that it was proven to me beyond a shadow of a doubt that it was incorrect information. Your memory, any that you've got, double check them with the people that may share them. Okay, even if we're talking your memories of your childhood. As a matter of fact, I strongly recommend that you talk to your parents or friends from that time frame, and double check your memories. There we go. The storm goes, I think it was Galileo. It may well have been. Like I said, I remember the flack I took. I remember working for the Spanish Inquisition. Now, I didn't invent the Iron Maiden, but I knew the guy who did. And as a matter of fact, this lifetime, I know the guy that built it. But I really encourage you, check your memories with the people that were alive at the same time, just in order to make sure that the message gets passed on properly. See, before we had writing, we had word of mouth. You had word of mouth memory. That's how history was passed. People were taught to memorize it verbatim. And this is a skill that has been long lost. Okay, but it's one that I strongly recommend you pass on to your own kids. If you can't remember it well enough to talk to them about it, write it down. Okay, I'm about to, as soon as finances finally take the right turn that I'm looking for, I am going to go back and start hunting through Ancestry and see what I can find out there. But, the imagination, this is where all my writing comes from. My memories of what I've been through, my self-help books, are all first-hand knowledge of what I've done to either change my life or guide other people through it. Okay. The three of them right now are believing yourself, believing in your business, and believing your finances. I'm working on, as we speak, believing your job. Because rest assured, not everybody is cut out to be an entrepreneur. Okay, but if you can imagine a world where your finances are stable, if you can imagine your finances are free flowing, your stress level is at a minimal, and your health is on the incline, then frankly, it's a world you can co-create. You literally have to believe it's possible, and then necessary work. Okay, where it comes to health, doctors are not a bad thing. They're just something I don't go to. But I do recommend you talk to a doctor, find out what you can about your health, combine that with talking to a naturopath or an herbalist and your own research. Again, I cannot stress enough, do your own research. Okay, it's not a question of not trusting anybody. It's a question of making certain that you're on top of your own game. Now, I've already got things in the works for building, for expanding things. And then, like I said, this little binder, all that paperwork are all individual sheets that are targeting different aspects of what I'm doing with positive perspectives. Okay. And again, for those of you that pass the information on the newsletter, I tell you straight in, I literally figured out how to track and pay for word of mouth advertising. Everybody has to pay for advertising. Okay. But word of mouth costs nothing. The best thing about word of mouth is if you do a good job, it will spread. If you do a bad job, it'll spread faster. Recommendation: do a good job. Okay. I heard somebody say tell me one day, the quickest way to get your business to grow is create a scandal. I'm like, not a good idea. Because it's also the quickest way to blow your credit out of the water. Now again, guys, and let me see here. Because I did pay attention, at least I hope so. Okay, we have currently going in, and this is literally being set up for March. We do have ads, we've got focal points, ads in different businesses. We are going to be, if we take a look, that's all at the beginning. Then we get into the paranormal. We'll be covering astrology. That's on fields. Past lives we're going to be taking a look at. How they really play. Now, I will tell you, any past life you remember, the odds are there's part of it that's good and part of it that's bad. We are going to be looking at different parenting techniques because, quite honestly, in case you haven't noticed, the world itself has sadly turned sideways. We will be covering the tarot. And, of course, get that out of the way. What's that? Crossword find puzzle for the individuals that like them. Actually, word search is more to the point. And what is that? That's the excerpt. We've got room for the gaming. We've got poetry coming in. These are all things that are part and parcel of what we're working on. Okay. Where we're dealing with the alien side, what is that? Oh. Questions around it. How to deal with abductions or different events have taken place. Different races we're dealing with. And we'll be looking at the overall alien situation. Then we take a look. What is that? That should be career. And again, like I said, all the information I'm putting in here, except if you have an article, if you've got something that you have seen that was positive, and I don't mean I positively saw that guy shoot somebody. It's not the negative things don't happen. It's a question of you've got a lot of things that you see. And I strongly encourage you, especially, or maybe more so, when you're dealing with your own memories. If you've got a lot of memories from a childhood that was really troubled, something that I would strongly recommend you do, look back at it. See if you can find even one little aspect that was positive. Because the fact you're here says there had to be something good between your parents at some point. In all likelihood. Yes, there are some families that get started. Hormones got out of hand and all of a sudden we got a kid on the way. But that's actually an extreme minority. When we go looking at the career, we're looking at what Inner Voice Enterprise is actually doing. We're looking at the career and what things are going on in other businesses, both personal and on a global base. Okay. We are also going to be looking into economics and some of the things that are driving that. These are all things in positive perceptions. But when you're looking at your memories, you may have had the most horrendous past that anybody can imagine. Okay. Or maybe your imagination has gotten right out of hand and things seem to be a lot worse than they were. Bear in mind, as a child, you hear a fight between parents, it's likely going to translate into being the end of the world. Okay, this is why I say look back at it, see if you can find even one thing that was positive. Just one. If you can find one thing, you can focus in on that and find other things to hang on to. Absolutely imperative moving forward. If we're going to stem the tide of this decline, we have to start working together. And yes, that means talking to each other. Okay, in my case, I'm translating as much as I can into written work. Primarily because, like myself, when you die, if you don't have anything written down, when you die, whatever is left of you is gone. Okay, anything that isn't written down, the memories are going with you. Okay, and contrary to popular science fantasy, putting a token on a skeleton does not get them to talk. Some of you yourself can put your hand on a skeleton or close to it, and you can find out what was going on. They call this psychometry. Okay, I've done this for years. I don't rely on it. I rely on it from the standpoint of knowing when I'm in trouble. When I'm going to be in a problem. But where it comes to communicating, you can communicate with the living, with the dead. You cannot communicate with your future self. And the reason I say that is not because you can't look to the future. It's because they can't communicate with you. Now, I will tell you this. If you, in order to see what's going on in the future, this is kind of a workaround. Get a thought in your head and keep it there. I require to know the answer to this. Did you ever figure out this formula? Do me a favor. When you figure it out, write it down. See yourself writing it down and leaving it on a gurney or on a table or on a counter or on a blackboard. Okay. See yourself doing this down the road. Okay. I'm pretty certain that's how I came up with the algorithm. Okay. I don't know for certain. But see yourself doing it. Then you can look to the future, zero in on that event, find the formula you're looking for, write it down, away you go. Now, does this interfere with timelines? Not at all, because you're the one that set it in motion. Okay. And it's simply a question of gaining, if you will, inspiration from, if you want to call it your future self, go ahead. Or call it your higher self. Call it a peanut butter sandwich. Whatever draws the focus to you, okay, that's what you're looking for. Because the reality is, memory is a great thing. It's something you really don't want to lose. Okay. I mean, I know I don't like losing my memory. It usually revolves around where the heck did I put my coffee cup? And that is frustrating beyond belief. I have the same problem recently with my pens. And yes, to be clear, that was my pens that go missing, not my pants. But when you have an active memory and or an active imagination, there is just about nothing you cannot accomplish. Few things I wouldn't recommend. Okay, but absolutely start designing the world you design that you would like to see. And what I mean by that is not look down the road 10 years. Look at where your life is right now, right here, right now, and start making the adjustments to eliminate the things that don't go inside. And again, this is something that the more you think about it, the more you focus on it, the more you imagine it, the stronger that image is going to get, and the more likely it is to come to fruition. I had a client years ago. She would take a look at a big ticket item, a car, a building, a property, and she would take a chunk of wood and she would carve that item. And within a year of completing that carving, she would have whatever the item was, almost to the square inch. It was phenomenal the way it worked. But that's the power of physical manifestation. It's not done by just thinking. It's done by thinking, planning, and doing. Okay. In a nutshell, you've got to have a purpose for what you're aiming and building. You got to have a plan for how to get there. You got to have persistence, stay on course, and you got to have patience. In other words, it didn't take a day to get to the situation you're in. It's likely going to take more than that to get out of it. But those 4 steps, those 4 categories, will almost unilaterally guarantee you success. Now, the question is whether you're going to put them to use. And that one I cannot do for you. I can tell you I'm doing that for myself. Because the way I figure it, if I can put my memory and my imagination to use properly and lead by example, then you guys have a shot at avoiding a lot of the headaches I went through. Let's face it. Now, I don't know how old you guys are, but I'm about to be 61. Now, if somebody had shown me this key when I was in my 20s, now I'd be a multimillionaire. Okay. As it stands, I'm 60. Okay. And I'm looking at it going, well, by the time I hit 100, I will be. I don't know. I'm still working on how long I want to sit around here. One thing I do know is I won't be shutting this down or the news or the magazine until I drop dead. But I am in the process of getting things organized for it. I did actually tell my one brother that, I do have a series of books for him, of our own family history. I was going to leave it a secret and then decide, no, he keeps coming off here. I'd like to get them into the possession of the people that require them. Now, I don't know as yet whether or not I'm going to be putting them on the market. That will depend on my other 2 brothers. Okay, it's that simple. Because in this case, it's our history, not just mine. But the more you can pull together of your memory, of your past, the better equipped you are to move forward and make a better future for you. And for that matter, for the people around you, if that's what you choose. But remember, karmic law is simple. Be true to yourself first. Do unto others as you desire them to do unto you. Energy out, energy in. By doing that, you will find out one very simple thing. Your life will almost certainly take a turn for the better. It doesn't guarantee you'll get away with no complications, but it certainly stacks the deck in favor of it. The other thing is, the more you talk to other people, the more variety of ideas you can come up with. And between you and possibly strangers, you can come up with ideas that can change your life for the better in an exponentially surprising fashion. Okay. And yes, I am absolutely asking for your assistance to make this happen. Okay. The reality of it is that we can continue going down the road we're on. You can continue blaming anybody you choose. Okay. But remember, behind all of this, There are good times that were had in the past. Every one of you, almost every one of you, is literally here because two people got together, presumably were in love with each other, and you're the side effect or the benefit, depending. Okay, the product of it, I think, is a better way to put it. Now, there are those of you that came into this world because of violence, because of aggression. But think, nobody is gauged by the height to which they climb, so much as by the height, as by the depth from which they have climbed. If you came into this world because of violence, and you turn around and you create something good in this world that helps people around you, now there's a legacy worth hanging on to, and there's a legacy worth celebrating. You may have had the most horrendous time in your youth. Okay, some of you have been literally stabbed in the back, shot in the back, run over, thrown off the train. There's all kinds of horrendous things people have had done to them. But now is the time to take all of that negative memory, all that negative experience, and start focusing on the things you can do. Not, it's time to quit going, what can the country do for me? Go, what can can the world do for me? What can I do for the world? How can I leave this world in a better shape than it was in when I got here? Okay, don't take the attitude I did when I came back in 1898. I came back, I wasn't looking to make anybody happy. I was looking for retaliation. Okay, even in Rome. Okay, I remember one lifetime in Rome where I was told stand guard and let my closest friends assault this young girl. And my lieutenant literally told me, he goes, he says, stand guard, you don't have to participate, but make sure nobody else disturbs us. So I stood outside and I'm hearing this girl scream inside. Well, that worked out really well. She was pleading for her safety, and it got to me. Well, I made certain that my best friends never got discovered. Well, actually, I think they got found. But I made sure nobody else caught them doing what they were doing. Okay, made sure nobody ever reported them, because I killed all 6 of them. Then grabbed the young lass by the wrist and let her out of the city, and I went AWOL. But for the next decade, she tried calming me down so I wasn't killing every Roman soldier I came across just because they happened to be wearing one. And yeah, even back then, they had what in today's world is called stolen valor. Now, I'm a firm believer, if you're going to claim stolen, if you're going to claim you were there and you weren't, ship you over. Now, I do not like war. I absolutely hate war. I find it is completely counterproductive and has never brought about peace. Okay, but if you're going to claim that you were over there and you're going to reap the benefits of what the veterans went through so that you could have the freedom to do that, if you're going to claim it, I'm a firm believer, draft you and ship you over wherever you have to, preferably the deepest, darkest hole available. But I've never been known to be subtle. Okay, now don't get me wrong. Those of you that have served, absolutely, my hat goes off to you. I never did get okay, but memory is what drives a lot of us to do a lot of things. Now, I'm curious what this is doing. The reality is our imagination, individually and collectively, are what paint the picture for how our world is going to turn to. Okay, it's time to start letting people know this is what we can do. This is a wonderful world. Yes, it's got its problems, but we still have the capacity to turn it around. And now is the time to do just that. Okay, now I don't know how the world's going to come out. I was asked to look into 2027, I think. Okay, and see what's coming. So I will be doing that. I actually committed to doing that for March, for the Spacedale Radio episode in March. Okay, so I'm doing the research now for it. And really, it boils down to doing the calculations. But you guys have given me some great ideas on what to do now. Where are we here? I look at my past lives and I go, okay, I've had some pretty horrendous ones. I've had some pretty astounding ones. Even like I never did run. If you look back to the stories of William Wallace, rest assured I was not William Wallace. As a matter of fact, I never met William Wallace. I heard about him. I knew what he was doing, and I can't say I was against what he was up to, but I did not run with him. On the other hand, I did do some things that were fun. I used to be a professional thief. Now I have trouble operating a standard lock. But I will tell you, when we take a look at memory and your imagination, let your imagination do what you will. Some of the best stories that I've run across are literally stories based solely in the imagination. Well, I shouldn't say that. Much of the imagination is based on an event and then extrapolated from it. And don't get me wrong, butterflies talking to each other and carrying machine guns may be a little bit stretched. Okay, but when you're looking at the world, one of the biggest things that you got to look at in this world is where are we heading? And how to get there. Where the world is heading right now is in case you hadn't noticed, there are more laws being passed. There's more separation and segregation that has been here for literally about the last 50 years. All of a sudden, everything's being backdated and pale happening. We're being backdated to the Dark Ages. This doesn't add up to prosperity to me. And for those of you that think this is all being done by the elites, let's face it. If it is the elites being done and they're doing it, something we got to consider. The elites got to be in positions of financial superiority by making intelligent moves. Okay, putting the world back into chaos is not fiscally responsible. This is one of the biggest arguments against them actually doing it. Now, that being said, there is nothing stopping from you guys turning around and going, we're going to do things in a more productive, more congenial fashion. We're going to start working together. Okay. And, I do keep an eye on my email. I keep an eye on all of that because I've got a picture of an empire, of a healing center that is absolutely beyond my fiscal reach right now. But it's not beyond it down the road. Okay. And maybe I don't get it done this lifetime. Maybe I do. Okay. But hopefully I spark enough of an interest, much like somebody else did centuries back, to change the very fabric of the way our world is working. Maybe, and yes, I know I'm one person, and one person ain't that big of a deal. It only takes one person to start things moving. It only takes one pebble to start an avalanche. Okay. Only takes one person to start a pandemic. So let's start another pandemic, shall we? Everybody put a smile on your face and say hi to the guy next to you or the girl next to you. Okay. Start a pandemic of being kind to each other. It's a weird pandemic, I know. Nobody dies. I don't think anybody's died from somebody being nice. I've never heard of somebody's face cracking because they put a smile. Well, that's not true. I knew one person whose lips were so badly chapped when they smiled, their lips bled. Didn't stop them from smiling, by the way. Joe, that is not going to be a problem. Drop me an email if I've got it already. That's definitely not going to be a problem. But where is? Take a look at that. Minimize that. And Joe, this here is the email you send to. Just ask me for the newsletter. I've got February's is already out. I'll get that off to you tonight. I send it by return email is really what it boils down to. That's the same email I use for any of the books I've got up for grabs. Okay, and eventually any of the merchandise I'm working with. That's the email I use for PayPal as well. And the nice part about it is, if you guys are especially with positive perspectives, if you spread it out and somebody says, I got the email from this person, I will track that. Like I said, word of mouth advertising is bar none the best on the planet. It's the best that's ever been. Okay. And it's the one thing I intend on making very different about my company as compared to any of the other ones on the market. The reality is I only send it out to people that ask for positive perspectives directly. I don't post it all over the place. I don't leave blank spare copies at any newsstand. It only goes out by direct request. And the very important factor is it is 100% free. That's just the simple backbone of it. I know there's a lot of people saying it's free, and then 6 months down the road, they're starting to charge. Newsflash, my first newsletter came out in July. Okay, it's still free. And here we are 8 months later, not 6. But is it continuing to grow? Absolutely. Today, we're not even into March yet, so that works out well. But this is a question of take this message. I came here to deliver a message. Very simple one. The concept is simple. And that is that working together, we can make this a better world for virtually everybody. But it's going to require the efforts of a lot of people. Okay. Right now, we got billions of people listening to others say, the world's going to end. You're all going to hell. I'll tell you, great hot tubs, too hot for me. But then again, I'm looking at I'm tossing around the idea of whether to go to Disneyland again. I haven't been to Disneyland in 40 years, 50 years. So I'm betting it's a whole lot different than what it was. But I did look into it. I'm picking up my medical insurance to be able to spend 35 days in the United States. Okay, and still have my medical coverage. Very important factor there for me. Okay. Now I've already booked a week down there. I'm looking at a 2-week trip this fall. And that still leaves me a week to play with. So I'll see how that all goes. Okay. But I do have to say thank you so much, people, for sharing your time with me. The reality is we're hitting the 2-hour mark. I'm surprised. I wasn't expecting to make it. But I want to say thank you so much for sharing your time with me. I really appreciate it. I will be back again tomorrow. But until then, do take care of yourselves and each other. And for pity's sakes, stay positive,